Hello. Okay, guys, thank you for joining. Let's just wait for some one or two people to join, and let's have a very important discussion today. I really want us to have a very important discussion today. So let me just wait for some few fans to drop in, and let's have a serious discussion on the topic whether education is the key to success or not. That is what we want to discuss today. Is education the key to success? So we want to discuss that today. Okay, so let's just wait for some few more minutes, and then we start the discussion. So when it's exactly 3 minutes, that is 1 minute 30 seconds from now, then we start officially. But thank you so much from where students like you, who is also a student, we come here, we discuss things in the educational field, things that are bothering you, things that you feel like you want someone to hear, and then the whole notion and mentality about education and whether education is actually the key or not, and whether or not you should go to school, because currently we have a lot of people online, not even online, not just online, but even around us, telling us that um degree is not worth it. You don't need to go to college. You don't need to have any form of education, right? So, what is the problem? Why is it really something that we should do? Should we get educated? Should we go to college? Should we invest in obtaining education? And that is what we want to discuss today. So just like I said, when it's exactly 3 minutes into the live stream, we'll start, which is just a few seconds from now. Okay. All right, guys. Good evening and welcome to Science Tutorial. This is an online education platform where we teach biology, chemistry, physics, and mathematics. Are we okay? We are also trying to make the channel as dynamic as possible, but as it stands right now, we are teaching biology, chemistry, physics, and mathematics. And we've started one of an online live study session that we are calling the Shakin Hour, but that is just by the way. So, what we want to discuss today is education the key to success? Is education the key to success? That is what we want to discuss about, because we see a lot of people telling us that education is not the key to success. There's no need for you to go to school. There's no need for you to get a degree, and all sort of comments about education. So I, as someone who is into the academia or who teaches, I really want us to have a discussion on whether education is actually the key to success, and that is what I want us to look at. So before we start, let's look at what is education. When we say education, what is education, and what are the components of education, and then we can conclude as to whether education is the key to success or not. Right, so let's take it one after the other. Let's first look at what education is, and then we look at the types of education that we have, and then we go into whether or not education is the key to success or not, right? So from my understanding, and from what I've researched so far, education, when we talk about education, this is the process of obtaining knowledge, okay, skills and values for you to be um, for it to be, how should I say, needed in society, right? So it's the process of obtaining knowledge, skills, and value in order to be useful in a society, right? Now, if you look at this definition, there's nowhere in this definition that it says that you have to go to school, right? So basically, what it means is that when we talk about education, so right from the day you were born, uh, you start being educated. Let me put it that way, right? So from your siblings talking beside you, from you being from your parents uh, trying to teach you good and bad things to do and things not to do, from you see people saying something and then you copy them, and all this activity, right? All of these things are a form of education, right? So that is the definition of education. So we are saying that education is the process of obtaining knowledge, right? It is knowledge, the process that you undergo to obtain knowledge, skills, okay, and value in order for you to be meaningful in a society. That is what we are saying is education. Now, if that is education, then what are the types of education that we have? So, one, we have formal education, and then two, informal education. So the first one is formal education, then the second one is informal education. So what is the difference? So formal education is where you go to an established institution, okay, which in this case is school, from your preschool to primary school to junior high school to senior high school to college or university, right? All those fall under formal education. So any form of education that you obtain from an established institution, that becomes a formal education, that becomes a formal education. And that is the first type of education, that is formal education. Now, the second one is the informal education, right? So the informal education is when you learn, but not in an established institution. So we are talking about maybe you learning from a podcast, maybe you learning from the church, maybe you learning from the house, you learning from the society, people around you, right? Apprenticeship and all those things. So a musician who has never been to school can still be successful because doesn't mean you're not the informally, in the sense that he or she studied and learned and practiced and repeated after people who are already successful in the industry, right from the onset. He or she decided not to pursue formal education but pursue informal education, right from the onset. The person is practicing, listening to pros in the industry, listening to people who are already there, up there, the upper echelons of life. The person is listening to those people, and then the person is practicing, taking his or her time to practice. A footballer who has been given birth to, and then just by being induced from the environment of just by the fact that he or she is exposed to football at an early stage, can decide to just focus on training, studying tactics and patterns and way other top players play, like Ronaldo and Messi, how they play, and many other top players. Then he or she looks at those persons and be like, I want to be like this person. So you try to mimic your behavior pattern, around them, right? So that is the second type of education that we are talking about. So we've clarified two things. We said that education is when you obtain knowledge, skills, and values in order for it to be meaningful in a society. And then we also said that we have two types of education. We have formal and informal. Okay, so broadly we have formal and informal. You can start break it down, but that is not really important. Now, if you look at this definition that I just said, then that presupposes that the statement that education is the key to success is actually correct. And people who are arguing that education is not the key to success are wrong. Now, let me justify. Now, let me explain. So, what I mean by this is the fact that if you look at it, if they say education is the key to success, it is true. Because under the umbrella education, we have formal education and informal education. So, whether the person has gone to school, okay, so case one, the person has gone to school, studied, right, acquired some skills, and became successful in life. That is formally educated individual. Then someone who has never been to school before or has some form of education, but not from an institution, but from people around him, family, friends, church, mosque, groups around him or her, right? Now that becomes an informal education, right? So no matter how you look at it, whether you are formally educated or not, that is a form of education. And so the statement that education is the key to success is true. That statement is true, right? It's not wrong. It is true. Now the problem is that formal education, right? So I think what I feel like the statement that people say education is not the key to success, right? It's not true, right? Because education is the key to success, and this is why. Education is the key to success because under education we have formal and informal education, like I said. Now, formal education, that is you being born, going to school all the way until you graduate to go and find a job, right? Is not necessarily the key to success. So if you want to argue that education is not the key to success, I feel like this is what you should say. You should say that formal education is not necessarily the key to success. Okay, that way, that statement, from my point of view, this is my personal opinion, I feel like that should be the right statement, because from that point of view, then I can agree with you that yes, it's true, because we have people who are educated informally and they are successful, right? So that means that, or that presupposes that formal education is not the only option for you to go. You can go informal as well, but regardless, they are all a form of education, right? So if you want to disagree that education is not the key to success, I feel like the right statement you should say is that formal education is not necessarily the key to success. This means that people who have high school diploma, degrees, and masters and PhD, right, may not necessarily succeed in life, and that is a true statement, right? Because we time and time again we've seen people who are highly educated academically, that is formally, but out there in the world they are not succeeding. Life is, hitting them hard, right? And then we see people who are not formally educated, who are just informally educated, right, and they are making it in life. Now, I feel like formal education and informal education are like two sides of a coin, right? So the entire coin is the education. The entire coin is the education. Now, like I said, the education is like a coin, right? Two sides of a coin. So one side is the formal education, the other side is the informal education. And like I said, if you look at it holistically, if you just want to go with one of them, then you are not going to succeed. Are we okay? So if you blend these two together, right? So this is my personal opinion again, and I will say that if you look at education, both, like I said, both sides of the coin, they are like 50-50. 50-50. So if you are able to successfully blend formal education and informal education together as one, then you stand a higher chance of succeeding in life, right? But if you take just one, like formal education alone, you've been to school, you've gotten your degree, and that is all you are relying on to make it in life, you may not succeed. People may, but you may not succeed, right? And so that is why, like I'm saying, that education is like a coin, right? We have the formal and then the informal, and these two come together to form the coin, the head and then the tail, right? And so if you put these two together, then you get education. So for you to be able to succeed in life, you need a formal education and then you need the informal education, right? This is something that people will say that you need a school knowledge and the street sense, right? You need to be smart because after college, you are coming back to society to come and either start school, start a job or start a business. Are we okay? And the problem I feel like we have is that we have a big problem with formal education, because formal education does not in any way prepare us for the outside world, especially in this part of Africa, West Africa, to be precise. Formal education or schooling alone does not prepare us for the future, and that is the sad part about it, right? Because once there are three things that happens after you graduate college or university, right? There are three things that happen. It's either one, you continue the school, or two, you get a job, or three, you are unemployed, right? Or you don't get a job. So what happens is that if you are continuing the school, then you have to wait until you are done before you start making some money, or you start taking some part-time jobs whilst you continue the school. Two, if you are able to get a job, you realize that the average pay for a degree holder with no experience is not that much. So in as much as you have a job and then you have money, it is not enough. It is not enough, right? Like you experience, it is not enough. And then the last one, which like I'm saying, the last one is that is you don't have a job. Now, if you don't have a job, the problem here is that you are either going to go around looking for a job, or you sit down, okay, what skills do I have? What can I start? What can I do to make money? Right? That is when you try to go into a business or entrepreneurship, or you start maybe some people may go the bad way, right? But we are looking at the brighter side of things, right? So three things that happen after you entered college or university. These are some of the three things that happen. So Julius Notte, I've seen you. Thank you so much for joining. Um, okay, so Julius is saying that that's great. Training or skills acquisition is currently also. I actually agree, right? See, it's very, very important. Now, the problem for me, a typical example like this, after I graduated university, right, I was lucky enough after national service, I got a job, right? But the problem with getting a job is that no matter where you work, it is not enough. Salary wise, it is never enough. It is now to take care of your accommodation, your feeding, right? And for you to be, in good shape, let me put it that way, for the following month. But it doesn't prepare you at all, right? And this is why I think it's very, very important for us to do some calculations or for finance, right? Financial knowledge or financial education. I feel like it's something very, very important that should be made compulsory in schools, especially in West Africa, right? Ghana, to be precise. Financial education or financial knowledge should be taught at school, right? Now, this is what happens. Let's do some basic calculations, right? Since we are students over here and I teach on this platform, I don't want the channel to just be about me teaching, and then there is no conversation that I have with for them to learn and have a field of what is going on in life, right? So let's do some basic calculations. So on average, if you're a degree holder here in Ghana, you don't have a job. You have a job. Let me put it that way. You have a job. You're a degree holder. You have a job. The best you can be paid, right? The best you can be paid is, most companies are likely going to start around 2,000 Ghana cedis, right? Now, the 2,000 Ghana cedis, for those of you who are watching, you are not Ghanaians, then that means it's roughly around $200, right? That is your pay. Now, should you get a good company, it should be between 3,000 to 4,000 Ghana cedis, which is like 300 to 400 dollars, right? That is for if you get a good company. Now, if you look at it, out of that money, because you are out of university and most of us move from the villages or cities in our hometowns and we've come to the capital, what it means is that now you have to get accommodation, right? Now, once you get accommodation, you need to be paying rent. Now, that rent is going to come from that money, right? So we are going to go with the middle, 3,000 Ghana cedis, right? Let's say you are on average, you're making 3,000 Ghana cedis or $300. This is before tax. So by the time the government takes tax, roughly around 400 or 500, right? So I'm going to stick with that. The take home, or the money you're going to take home, 2,600 Ghana cedis, which is like dollars. This is the amount of money that you are likely to take home. That is after tax. Now you are going to have to rent a room, right? Now the rent, depending on where you want to rent, whether close to the organization that you are working at or far from it, then the price would differ, right? But let's just say you are not too far from work, you're not too close from work. And so if you're too close to work, most especially around the industries, the housing there is very costly. If you are too far from it, you realize that the cost is down, but the transportation is also cheaping it. So you have to stay somewhere in the middle or quite close to the workplace, right? So I'm assuming on a monthly basis, you are going to pay somewhere around 500 to 600 cedis as rent, right? So out of the 3,000 Ghana cedis, 400 is already going as tax. You are going to pay roughly 600. Let me just make it 500, okay, for a single room as for accommodation, right? So already before the salary come, you already have the amount that you can use out of the 3,000 is already 2,001. And this is me being very generous, right? Now, we are not talking about transportation yet. We've not talked about transportation yet. So the transportation in and out of work, right, roughly can take you like 600 or 700 Ghana cedis, if not close to 900 or 1,000, depending on where you are living. But I will be generous and say 600 Ghana cedis. That's like $60, right? For a whole month. So if you subtract that, then you have like 1,500, right? Now, out of this 1,500, you are just freshly out of university and you got a job, right? So you rented an empty room, to be precise. You have an empty room. Now, you need some basic necessities. You need a table, you need a chair to sit on, you need a table. And if you are someone who is into electronics or digital, or you try to use your machine to learn, or you have some small graphic design skills or stuff like that, you need a laptop, right? Now, to have a 16 gig RAM machine, which I use for my Shaking Hour live stream, something that is fast enough for you to work, you're looking at something like 5,000 Ghana cedis. That is not original, but that is home use. You're looking at 5,000 Ghana cedis. That 5,000 Ghana cedis, if you look at it, that is like 3 months of your salary that you don't touch. But already we know that every month a lot of deductions are coming, and so already you only have like 1,500 to spend in a month, right? On yourself. Now, down on yourself, right, you even have to buy water, right? Water, light bill, electricity, like a whole lot of things chip in there, right? So what happens is that by the time you take out your utilities and other things out of the 1,500 cedis, you are roughly left with something like maybe 1,000 cedis or 900 cedis, right? But let me be generous and say you are left with 1,000 Ghana cedis. Now that you are left with 1,000 Ghana cedis, that is what you are going to spend for the entire month until the following month. But then again, remember, you just got an empty room. You need to buy a table, you need to buy a chair, you need to buy a fridge, basic necessities, right? You need to buy a wardrobe, you need to buy a fan. Okay, so by the time at this pace, right, at this pace with this salary, so by the time you buy a table, by the time you buy a chair, by the time you want to buy a fridge, right, a year has already passed, right? By the time you try to buy a bed in the room, get a better chair. Now, you don't want to sit on plastic chair, you want some ergonomic chairs so that you don't develop back problems, right? By the time you buy chair, a wardrobe, and then maybe even bed, like second year has passed. So by the time you try to, okay, you know what, it's a single room, it gets hot at times, so let me buy air condition, right? So by the time you want to buy air condition, like the third year has already passed. 3 years into it, and your room is just barely enough to accommodate you. Now, that is not even the sad part. The sad part is that you are growing, okay? You are growing. And so you need to start thinking about what you want to be or who you want to be, right? Or basically you need to start investing in yourself, because you know that your current job, the money is not enough. So you need to upgrade for you to be able to be paid a higher salary, right? So there are two ways you can go around it. It's either you go back to school and acquire masters and come, and if the organization recognizes it, then they promote you, or they give you some increment in your salary, and that could help. Or you try to do something outside of the work. So which means after you go to work and you come back, you try to do something, right? Like maybe graphic design, or build a website, or go into content creating, right? You try to do something to earn extra source of income. Are you okay? And then what happens is that because of the nature of um, 9 to 5 jobs, especially when you don't live close by where you work, it becomes extremely difficult for you to succeed. It becomes extremely difficult because one, you need to wake up around like 4 or 5 a.m. in the morning, depending on where you live, get ready, get a car, go to job. After you get to work, you close around 5 or 9. So that 8 or 9, and then you need to wake up and then continue the journey the following day, because you need to report to work early as well. So what it means is that that entire day has gone by without you doing anything to develop yourself personally, right? So if that same pattern continues, you realize that it becomes extremely difficult for you to develop yourself or to make side money. Now the problem is that the weekend, somebody will say, okay, what of Saturday and Sunday? Now, Saturday and Sunday are there. By the time Monday to Friday has already dealt with you, Saturdays you are very tired. Remember, you need to also wash. So by the time you wash and be like, oh, let me rest small, the day is already over. And then Sunday, okay, Sunday, if you're a Christian, you go to church. If you're not a Christian, maybe you stay in the house. But that is like a day, 1 out of 7 days, right? So you basically like you have roughly 24 hours in a week for yourself, 1 day out of 7 for yourself, right? So if you're going to develop yourself at that pace, it's going to take very long for you to be able to make it. So basically what I'm saying is that, or what I'm trying to say is that, yes, education is the key to success. That much I agree, right? And like I said, education has two sides. It's like education is like a coin. We have two sides of it, each is 50-50. We have the formal education where you go to school, you obtain your degree or you obtain your certificate, and then you, right, that is formal education. The informal education, any established institution, you learn from what people's podcasts, you learn from observing people, you learn by apprenticeship, or uh, you learn by learning yourself, right? Or repeating after people or copying people. That becomes an informal education, right? And that is also very important. All these two, formal and informal, come together to give you what we call education, right? And so once you have formal education, you are street smart, you should be able to make it in life. Now, the fact that there's that probability of you to succeed in life doesn't guarantee that you'll succeed. What it means is that if you have even 9 to 5 job, you need to start thinking of a way to make extra source of income, right? Now, the problem there is that now there are a lot of ways to make money online, but if care is not taken, you'll be duped, and then you you may be forced to do something you don't want to do, right? So basically what I'm trying to say is that education is the key to success. Yes, it's correct. The formal education is not necessarily the key to success, like, or going to school, any form of school, right? It's not necessarily the key to success because school cannot make you rich. You need to be street smart as well, right? So formal education is not necessarily the key to success, but education is the key to success because under education, we have formal and informal. And also, what I'm trying to say is that in as much as I am teaching on this channel, I am trying to help you prepare for your WASE, your JAM, your SAT, your CSAT. I'm just trying to help you, right? I'm just trying to help you pass formal education. But then again, we need to start having some of these conversations. Some of you in school right now need to start learning about finances. You need to start learning about how you are going to prepare yourself, how to save some money, how to have some emergency funds. And I'm not really a big fan of just make money and save because that doesn't give you any return. You need to find a smart way of investing. Now, when it comes to investing, there are a lot of information on the internet, but you need to take your time, read, scrutinize very well before you go in there. Because in as much as there are a lot of information online for you to make money, there are a lot of people that can steal your money, right? A lot has crypto. So I don't really tell you what it takes for crypto, right? Like they don't really tell you what equation. They don't really tell you the amount of money, time, energy, and resources that you need to invest. The fact that you have to learn video editing, the fact that you have to, if you can learn it, you need to employ somebody, and the fact that you can be on YouTube for over 5 years and still not make a single money on your channel. It's there, right? So basically what it means is that we look at some few successful people who were able to smartly develop some strategies to make it, or through their consistencies were able to make it, and then they now use that as a leverage to promote some unrealistic expectations that make young ones like us feel like, no, we are far behind time, right? So basically, you are not far behind time, but then again, you also don't have to sleep, right? You need to do something. need to do something, because this channel I started, my friend and I actually started this channel back in 2020 during COVID, right? So if you look at it, it's been 5 years now. And if you look at it, the channel performance is not that impressive, but we are growing. We can see growth. So for us, it's okay. But the amount of money, bundle, time, energy, and resources that went into this channel, but we are yet to get any substantial benefit from it. If care is not taking, you might give up. So YouTubing is not that easy, right? It's not that easy. There are people who, using some smart strategies were able to succeed, but we all have different paths. But the goal here is that you need to be ready to be faced or hit with setbacks, right? Everything is not going to go your way. The job that you want, you may not get it because someone is more qualified than you are. Someone is more qualified, has more experience than you are. So what makes you special, right? So in as much as you are putting yourself out there, you are trying your best to become the best version of yourself, and then you are trying to be educated. You also need to be smart, right? And being smart means that you have to how should I say, continuously improve yourself, but also try to look out for opportunities. There are opportunities out there. And then don't be like me, who is always indoors Saturdays and Sundays, right? I'm trying to change that. I'm trying to go out, right? But the aim of going out is not for me to have fun. The aim of me going out is to have to develop connections, right? To meet people, to um see what guys are doing out there, because there are young guys who are making it, and then you can also make it. I can also make it. We can also make it, right? That like they say, your net worth is determined by your circle. So you need to have strong friends. You need to have people who are really have similar mentality like you, people who are ambitious, people who are hungry to succeed. You need to have these people around you. And once you have these people around you and you meet your conversation is all about success, right? The conversation is all about how you can improve yourself, how you can become the better version of yourself. I think this is something that will really, really help you, right? That competition among you guys is needed, right? Because if you don't have that competition, if you don't meet friends, if you don't see what boys are doing, you are just indoors, you go to work Monday to Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you are indoors, right? Trust me, you may have passion from the beginning, but along the way, that passion, right? So you want to see what boys are, not necessarily outside, but even online. You want to and be inspired, right? Be inspired, don't be jealous, right? Because there are some people who flaunt their worth online. You don't know the source of their worth, right? Or you don't know the sacrifices they have to make to be at that position. So you're not jealous about them. You're not jealous. You also need to be inspired, right? So you see someone making it, you're like, oh, you know what? I can also make it, right? I can also make it. So the person is making it in this particular field. Okay, what does the person know, right? From the look of things, this is not something that I can obtain from going to school. So I need to study this person. I need to journal. I need to write something down. I need to plan my life, right? And I feel like this is something that we really, really should take seriously, right? So yes, so what I will do is that every day, not every day, most days before I we start the Sharking Hour, like I said, we have a live stream session that we call the Sharking Hour. That's going to start 8 p.m. GMT. That's going to start immediately after I end this live stream. So the Sharking Hour is just me teaching live online mathematics, physics, chemistry, and biology, right? We teach online. If you have any question, you ask, right? So today we are going to have another session. We have the sessions from Mondays to Fridays. So the second hour will be coming on right after here, 8 p.m. or by 8:30. It should come on, but it's going to come on 8 p.m. exactly, GMT. Now, share the video, like the video, go to my page, share the video, like the video, go to our playlist, watch the videos, right? But we will be having conversations like this, student conversations like this. And I really want you guys, when you come, drop something in the comment section. Let me know what you think about what I'm discussing. If you have any topic you want us to discuss, we should discuss it, because I feel like as students, we don't really have anyone listening to us. We don't have anywhere to share our experiences, uh, educational experiences. Let me put it that way, right? Because this is an educational platform, we only share educational experiences, not your relation. We're not interested in your relationship or anything, but if your relationship is going to impact your academics, right? You can bring it and have a discussion on that. So, thank you guys so much for joining. And I hope I make sense by saying that statement that education is the key to success is actually true. And so if you want to disagree with anything, you should disagree with the fact that formal education is not the key to success, right? So the right statement that I believe you should say is that formal education is not necessarily the key to success. That is what I believe you should say, because going to school alone is not enough for you to make it. Some people will make it using that process, others will make it using the informal, but most people have to blend the formal education and then the informal to be able to make it in life, right? So thank you so much, and that is what I have for you. So I'll end this live stream, because at exactly 8 p.m. we will continue with Sharking Hour, where today's discussion is going to be on change of subject. Yes, change of subject in mathematics, core mathematics. So if you know any student in Ghana, Nigeria, Liberia, Sierra Leone, or South Africa, or India, or anywhere in the world, right, and they are preparing for their SAT, SAT or CSAT or JAMB or WASE, you need to share the link with them, because that live stream will be starting very soon at 8 p.m. GMT, and we are going to learn change of subject, because this is an educational platform, and all we do and talk about is all about education and how a student like you and I would succeed in life. I'll be okay. So thank you once again, and I hope you have fun. If you just joined, please like the video, and then join me tomorrow same time, from 7:10 to 7:40 or 7:50. We'll have a discussion about student life before we start the Sharking Hour. So thank you once again, and I will see you guys. Bye bye. Okay.